What is going on, my friends, and welcome back to another video on the channel. Well, in today's video, we are going over POLYGON MATIC as its price has really been outperforming the rest of the market. This is one of the biggest positions in my entire portfolio. And so with that being said, I wanted to talk about if it was a good time to buy and if we are going to see some continued growth or what it's looking like in the near to short term. Okay, so with that being said, looking at MATIC, one thing that I've been picking up on, of course, has been this ascending wedge in which the price has been in realistically since last September. Now, this thing has been outperforming the rest of the market quite substantially, and that is always a good thing to see, especially as their use case does grow. Now, of course, we did hear Vitalik say that ETH 2.0 is maybe roughly 50 to 60% done, and so considering that, I think the fact that MATIC is really more focused on being a layer 2 solution for Ethereum, that gives them even further use case, and it gives them even further potential to see more growth. Up until that point, then of course we'll have to just see how that all does play out. But what we do know is that as they have been outperforming the market, they have been seeing these waves to the top side and the bottom side that we've really been able to take advantage of quite strong, right? So these two boxes were my most recent take profits levels. Took profits around 269 and took profits around 255. As you can see over in the Patreon, took about 20% off of MATIC on December 8th, which was going to be right back here. And then a few days before Christmas, I took another 20%, locking in gains of well over 200 to 300%, okay? And so going forward, I am still looking for some great buying opportunities, but one thing I am noticing is that these waves are starting to diminish. There are some diminishing returns in the short term for MATIC as it is battling against the market. And so as we do start to consider where another buy could be, I am under the belief personally that these the returns on each one of these little waves to the top side are slowing down, which we will kind of justify with some statistics in a second here. So overall, whenever we're looking to see if there's a buy coming up, of course there's a couple things we need to gauge. One, have we been able to find some support? Two, was it a strong establishment of support? And three, what are the levels we need to break in order to confirm that we are likely to see some growth? Because remember, we're not saying that it's for sure going to happen. We're evaluating the realm of possibilities and determining what's the likelihood of a move to the top side happening, and then we can gauge if it's a good buy or not. So looking at this thing, what I'm noticing, of course, is that we have seemingly established support on this key level of support in which we've been in since about July. That was touch number 1. We came down to it around here. Number 3, number 4. Of course, 4 touches on a trend line really does start to establish it as an incredibly strong trend line. 1 or 2 is okay, but obviously once we get to 3, once we get to 4, that is much stronger. Now, in terms of topside resistance, we have a very similar thing playing out in which we had 1, 2, 3, 4 extremely strong touches on that level, carrying us back up to our previous all-time high. So whenever we look at this thing in a more zoomed in version, I would go ahead and say that this establishment of support is definitely strong, and it has been established on an extremely strong level, being of course this ascending level of support. Now, one thing we can also look at is the idea and the fact that we did actually establish some support on top of this more macro Fibonacci 0.618 to 0.786 level. If we go ahead and we draw out our Fibonacci's from our more, again, macro swing low to swing high, one thing you can see is that we came down to the golden pocket, the 618 to 786, and established some support. As soon as we hit that level, we bounce right back out of it. All of those things to say that these two key levels that we did establish support on are extremely strong, and they do have the potential to continue us back up to the top side for sure. So the potential is definitely there, increasing our likelihood to be able to see a move, absolutely. So now going forward, now that we know that we have established some support and it is a strong level of support, let's kind of take a look at some of our oscillators. Let's take a look at our indicators to go ahead and say, do we have the momentum capability to see a move to the top side? Now, the biggest one that I want to pay attention to realistically is going to be the RSI, because it's kind of painted a picture of what exactly is happening right now. Now, one thing we can see is that on our RSI, it does confirm the fact that we are seeing some diminishing returns from this overall big move to the top side that we've been in, this big wedge here, simply for the fact that you can see the bull's momentum slowly dying down. Now, the reason you can tell that is because, for example, back in October, we set a high, and we set a high on our RSI, but from there, as we did go ahead to set a higher high on price, we set a lower high on the relative strength index, meaning that although we are still growing, the strength of this growth is slowing down, and that is also accompanied by the idea that as we are in an ascending wedge, this ascending level of resistance also has our slope here, and our slope is not going straight up. Our slope is kind of slanted sideways a bit, which will diminish our returns over time as it does start to interact with this key level of support, meaning that this is going to become smaller and smaller. So what this tells me is that though we did bounce off of this key level of support on our RSI that has carried us this to the top side, not only once, but twice, I am under the belief that we will make, we'll be able to make another move to the top side here based off of our oscillators and our indicators. But it does mean that the move may be a little bit less significant than what we saw back here or what we saw back here, in which we took advantage of, 50 to 60% gains. Okay. So the way in which I would go about this, personally speaking, is looking for 3 confirmations. Okay. We're going to do a 3-step confirmation on this one in order for me to buy, maybe to pick up on a 20 to 25% gain. So confirmation number 1 is, of course, going to be the clearing of the downtrend in which we have established over the last roughly about 3 weeks here. Okay. So of course we said point number 1, points number 2 and 3, and then we are at point number 4 right now. Okay. And so what we need to see is that this downward sloping trend line is able to be crossed. Now, in the event in which we do cross this downward sloping trend line, I also want to see on more of a macro scale that we are able to set a more, or on a 4-hour macro scale, let me rephrase there, that we are able to set the new high above this previous macro high here. Again, just on a 4-hour scale. It's not that big, but on a 4-hour scale, it's a rather large high there, okay? I want to see that we're able to push back above this level and clear it, because if that is the case, that establishes now as out of this downtrend. We've broken the downward sloping trend line, and we've also established a new local high from this one, which both of those things say. Likelihood is now we can come back down, find some support, continue to the top side. Okay. Now, the last thing that I want to see is actually going to be the fact that we get above the 20 simple moving average on the daily charts. Okay. Now, usually speaking, I don't always base it off of that. I don't always use it as a confirmation. But one thing I picked up on from Matic is that when we entered into more of this long-term downtrend back here at the beginning of this channel, we found some extreme resistance at this level, even as we did break to the top side. And so I want to see that we're able to clear it, because historically when we've been able to clear it, that's whenever we've started these uptrends. Okay. So our third confirmation is going to be the clearing of this 20-day simple moving average on the daily charts. So if we're able to do this, boom, break above resistance, break above this key level of resistance at $2.29, and then we clear this 20 simple moving average on the daily charts, that's my 3-step confirmation that we may be making a move of somewhere up to, 20 again to 28% roughly back up to our top side resistance here. And then of course that is when I would start to look on to take on that trade. Since the considering the fact that the market has been in a bit of a downtrend and the market has been struggling to find growth, yet Matic is still battling against the market, I don't want to take any extreme risks, because anytime the market does shift downwards, that makes it even harder for Matic to be able to see that growth back to the top side. And I don't want to consistently keep trying to bet against the market by buying Matic, because we all know that eventually if the market does continue to go down, Matic will eventually follow it. And I want to make sure we're getting these confirmations before that happens, just so I can kind of ensure and secure some of those gains without just buying in and hoping for the best. So that's the 3-step confirmation that I'm looking for in order for me to say that Matic is a good buy. Of course, you could buy it right now, and if it does hit top channel, you could look at 30%, but I'd rather lose 7% in gains to have the confirmation that I'm not about to see, some type of losses of 30+%. Okay. I'd rather, again, save a little bit and not get as much gains in order to secure my bottom side, to make sure that I'm not seeing extreme losses there. So overall, that's about what I'm seeing from Matic. Do understand that typically speaking, these cryptocurrencies will move with Bitcoin. And so definitely don't ignore the Bitcoin charts. Do tune in for our Bitcoin technical analysis. I do it every other day in order for you to know what is going on with Bitcoin. And then that can kind of help you gauge and decide what you're going to be doing with your Matic, as of course that they kind of do run in parallel. So with that being said, that is going to be about it for today's video. Of course, I hope you guys did enjoy, and if you did, you can always let me know by smashing that like button and subscribing to the channel if you are new, and I'll see you next time. Peace.